Oh my God. Let's talk about it. Wow. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of the Shudder film When Evil Lurks. This film is directed by Damien Rugen. Okay, so When Evil Lurks is the newest Argentinian film from director Damien Rugen. It's a film about a group of people in a small Argentinian town who believe in a thing that is called the Rotten, which is a virus or demonic entity that passes through the city. And the easiest way to explain this movie in a non-spoiler sense is something happens that they cause, and it causes this demonic virus to spread, and they have to figure out how to get away from it. But in order to do that, they have to make certain sacrifices, and they have to cause certain things to happen. Well, as you know, when it comes to these types of films, that's not necessarily how it's going to play out. So therefore, the main characters, two individuals, two brothers, have to figure out how to do that. And it's a horror film that deals with possession and deals with like a virus and stuff like that, and deals with demonic entities. And it's very much what Damien Rugen is known for doing. So that's basically the synopsis. They come across something called the Rotten, which is something they believe in, which is something that could cause very much a system-wide pandemic in a lot of respects, and they have to stop a demonic force from reincarnating, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. Okay, so this is a film, I'll be fairly honest, I didn't even really have on my radar. I saw that it was playing in theaters, but a lot of films playing in theaters that I don't really have any interest in. Well, it comes across my feeds, and I listen to podcasts, especially movie podcasts like the Filmcast, and certain individuals on that podcast talked about how amazing this film was, as well as someone I know who talks about how good The Last Director's film was, so they were really excited for it. So I'm all about original horror films. I'm all about just the creative nature of what directors who have a lot of passion, whether it be Sam Raimi with The Evil Dead, or Drew Goddard with, of course, The Cabin in the Woods, and John Carpenter with Halloween. There are certain individuals in this world that create authentically horrifying films or authentically crazy looking films. And so, I went into this blind. I had not seen the trailer for it. And it was something that, if it's as good as they say, I'll be pretty pleased, to be fairly honest with you. And so this movie has a limited release from IFC and Shudder. It'll premiere on Shudder by the end of October. And so my honest review of this movie, this is probably one of the most crazy horror films that I have seen, and this is me stuttering, in quite a long time. This movie is incredible. It's a top 10 film of the year for me, and it's a film that is not for the faint of heart. Now, with that said, it is an absolutely delightful horrifying film to watch, and that's a weird thing to say, but when you're a person that likes original material, and it doesn't matter if it's comedy, drama, horror, whatever, that's an A+ in my book. That's a thing where if you can create something truly unique, use maybe some parallels with certain ideologies and stuff like that, but use it in a good sense where it feels truly original, usually you're gonna win my heart. And that's exactly what this film does. Similar to like something like Mandy that came out a few years ago, there's usually a film every year, and I talk about this all the time. There's usually a film every year that comes out that just completely blows me away. It's something I was not truly expecting, and that's why I listen and kind of take in some of the kind of smaller films that people recommend. And this film is absolutely amazing to watch. It's graphic, it's violent, it's disturbing, it's horrifying, but also has some interesting messages, which I'll talk about in spoiler sense. It has a great group of cast of characters that I don't know the individuals by hand, and has an impeccable directorial style from Damien Rugen, and it completely blew me away. I was not expecting what I was going to get myself into. I was actually queasy a little bit because it was that violent and that disturbing, and it goes places that may make you uncomfortable, and I was absolutely all right with that. Like I said, horror films in general are films that are meant to make you feel a sense of urgency, make you feel a sense of decay, and make you feel a sense of like unease. And so, a lot of horror films, whether it be The Exorcist Believer or The Nun or something like that, they feel like they're too campy and too non-existence to be good horror films. You know, I talked about how Saw 10, it felt like just a breath of fresh air, because it was. Yes, it used the Saw material, but it just feels like a thing that's authentic, and that's what it feels like here. This is one of the most original things I've seen in quite a while, and it takes no punches. It really doesn't. And I think it's very, very beautifully shot. I think it does a really nice job with its atmosphere, and I think, you know, Shudder and IFC and Damien Ruggen should be commended for putting out this film, because it's not an easy film to watch. It really isn't. I can't recommend it to, like I said before, I can't recommend it to people who just can't handle a really violent, really uncomfortable type of film, and it goes for it. It's a huge R-rated film, and for 99 minutes it will make you feel things that you didn't expect to feel, but it does it with such panache. It really does. I absolutely loved it. I think it delivers on all fronts, and that's kind of where I leave it with my non-spoiler review. Like I said, I'll get into spoilers since it's been out for a little bit while, and if you want to wait for Shudder, you know, definitely watch it when it comes on Shudder. So it'll definitely be worth your time, and I think this will be one of those like horror films that will be a cult classic, as well as a classic in the horror community, because it's pure spectacle joy, and I just love it. I love these characters in this film. I love the atmosphere. I love the story. It's not perfect. It has some issues with kind of the storytelling aspects, but what it does, what it hearts into the hearts of men and women and society, it really delivers on full front. So that's where I'm going to leave it with my non-spoiler review. I do appreciate it. If you don't want to hear about the spoiler stuff, just, you know, wait till the film comes out and come back to watch the review. But anyways, if you head out, thank you so much for watching, and let's head into the spoiler territory. So, spoiler territory for this film. This film, once again, it's a very difficult watch. It's a very uneasy watch. It once again deals with very hard material when it comes to children. Once again, it makes children very, very susceptible to evil, very susceptible to societal differences. It basically puts young children in front and center in very dangerous situations, and has an interesting payoff that, you know, you're either going to be really interested in or really just put back by, because, you know, when the movie basically starts out as these two brothers are walking through the woods, and they hear a gunshot, and all of a sudden they come across this body that's been disfigured, and they come up to this house, which it looks like the people living there are gypsies or something like that. But anyways, they have a son in this house that looks like something out of a I don't know, a David Cronenberg film, and maybe a David Lynch film. It's like this really disgusting, there's a picture you can see, really disgusting, really pussy, just, oh, it makes you like skin crawl, just how disgusting it is. And basically what this movie is doing is, at least from what I gather, I mean, you're in the comments below, let me know what you think, but from what I gather from this film, is it's dealing with not only the fears of a society that is dealing with, you know, something that they can't explain, but it is also dealing with a pandemic in a lot of respects. This feels like a pandemic movie, with the idea of like how the disease, which is called the Rotten, which is what this individual, I think it's called Uriel, I think is what his name was, it spreads when they they take him to, first they're going to shoot him, but they decide not to, because they're worried if they shoot him, it'll cause possession on other characters that are in this film, and as we see later on, that happens. But they decide to take him, and it's really disgusting. I'm like, oh, this is great, but this is like, oof, I may throw up. But they take him, and then he disappears. Like they almost hit a kid, and I don't know if the body gets taken from the little children that we see at the end, but somehow he disappears from the truck. Now, with that said, this movie is a slow burn build, so it's just like, okay, where's it going? How's it going? But once it hits full gear, that's when it starts to become really chaotic and really insane, because what ends up happening is this character, the main brother, the one who has kids, rushes to basically retrieve his kids, and his ex-wife has put a restraining order, and you can kind of feel the sadness about how kids deal with a very disturbed kind of familiar relationships, and how they deal with, like, you know, abuse and stuff like that. So like one of the kids is autistic, and one of the kids, you know, loves his father but is very scared and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that domestic abuse type scenario, and in the process, because of the nature of like this possession and this kind of nature of like this disease that's spreading that will cause the world to basically end, it causes the dog to smell the clothes of this guy who has the disease on him, and the dog attacks one of the kids. Now, if you have kids, this is a really disturbing sequence, but what really makes it interesting, what makes this movie just kind of tick, is the dog pulls the kid away. The stepfather goes after the dog, shoots the dog, and they say you can't shoot this thing because it's possessed, and if you shoot it, you will become possessed. So once again, it's like having COVID or some kind of disease or some kind of virus that spreads, and if you don't deal with it in the right way, it could spread and spread and spread. And that's what I kind of gathered from it. And it leads to this like crazy thing where the mother is freaking out, the ex-wife of this guy is freaking out, and then the daughter shows up and she's fine, and then she predicts that the stepfather is going to kill her, and then he kills her by ramming his truck into it, and the girl's dancing around. And it's once again is dealing with like kids and how the horrifying and menacing and disturbing they feel in movies. And it's wild to watch, because once he takes his two sons, one is of course like I said, autistic, so there's a lot of issues there. It basically leads them on this journey to this woman who has experienced the rot before, the virus, the demonic possession, or whatever you want to call it. And in the process, her name's Sabrina, but she calls this character, the main character, on the phone as the grandma, and of course the brother, the other brother are there, and she's like, I'm coming for my kids, I know exactly where you are, I'm going to, whatever. And once again, they find themselves at this house, and it's just quite incredible stuff, because it's very visceral. It really shows you that this guy just fails on all levels. It's about the failures of an individual, and just not being able to protect his kids and all that good stuff, as well as this fire spreading. And it leads them to basically the mother finds them and takes the kid and eats the kid. Like the young kid, when the other brother, not the main character brother, but the other brother's driving along, she's on the road and she's eating the inside brains of this kid, and it is insane. We've already had a woman get hit by a truck, kid get dragged by a dog. Now this woman jumps out a window and falls and eats the kid, and then he runs her into the car and she's still alive. And it's just like, oh my God, this is insanely incredible and disturbing, and it's bonkers. And it leads to, they decide they're going to go to this whatever school or church or something like that. It leads them to all these kids that we've seen throughout the film. And what's crazy about it is these kids can't be relied upon. They're lying, and they're making falsities and stuff like that. Once again, falsities of America, you believe it and you kind of go for it. So I know where it's going. If you don't like it, it's the unfortunate nature of how Hollywood and how these directors work, is they're leaning into the material of the certain last few years, and certain dictators and presidents and stuff like that. And the woman that they originally go to the house to basically tells this guy, do not go get the axe that this girl is like saying she's good, because if you do, they're going to kill me. And they kill her. They actually beat her in the head with a hammer, and over and over and over. It's like, okay. And the guy comes out and he sees the Uriel, the really disgusting grown man, in the floorboards of the school, and he beats the guy dead with the pipe or whatever it is. Uriel's reborn into a demon child, and this possession, this virus, whatever, out in the world, kids out in the world, he is mocked crazy. We find out that the young autistic kid is very much possessed by the demon or whatever, the virus, and eats the grandmother, we basically see like hair come out and the jewelry, and the grandmother's been eaten, and it literally ends with the main character like screaming in horror because he realizes that everyone he knows is dead, and the demon's been let loose, and he's not really won anything. It's just, it boils down to, it's not the fact that he won or he didn't win. It once again isn't an analogy or homage or whatever you want to call it, to allegory or whatever you want to call it, to once again a pandemic. Once again, not being able to stop the pandemic, letting it spread, millions of people die. It goes out there in the open, and you can't contain it because it's now officially out there. It's similar to like Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist or whatever you want to call it, or Halloween. Once the entity or the evilness gets out there and you let it loose, you've lost, and therefore it will spread and become a major situation. And then you find out like the kid that was with the grandmother or the mother in the beginning of the film killed the grandmother and killed his mother and stuff like that. And it's an insane film. It's a really crazy, but it's so good. It's so good. If you like good, crazy horror films that have a lot of interesting meaning, a lot of interesting context, that deal with some very subversive, very allegory material, that's what this film is. And I can't tell you enough about how this will definitely be in my top 10. Where I don't know yet, because once again I put Mandy like number 9 or whatever, and then I had, I can't remember what films I've had, but I've had at least one crazy film that I felt was really remarkable, and it definitely deserves a pantheon of just being one of the great horror films of the last decade or the last 20 years. So if you haven't watched it yet, definitely highly recommend it. I mean, you have if you're watching the spoiler review, but definitely give this film a watch if you haven't. So that's my spoiler discussion for When Evil Lurks, a new film that will premiere on Shudder very soon, but is currently in theaters as a limited release. And if you have a chance to watch it, definitely recommend watching it, especially in the theater, because you will have a time. Don't take a date to it, because they will not be happy. Take them to the Eras tour or whatever, the Taylor Swift thing. But with that said, that is going to be my take on this film, which is When Evil Lurks. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below, what is your favorite horror film in the last 20 years? What's the craziest horror film you've ever seen? Are you looking for this film? That's where I'll leave it. So anyways, with that said, thank you so much. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.